babysitters were people who had come from Virginia.
You mentioned that to me when I first
act
met
that
you
you're talking
to
about.
Monkey, right?
Absolutely. They were Atkins, who were Chickahominy,
Right.
there were Rappahannocks, there was some Pamunkey.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to Bacone because that was a place where they could be recognized.
Right. They
as
couldn't go to the
Native
white
people.
schools in
They couldn't
Virginia.
go to the
If
white
they went to
schools
an
in
African American school, they'd be
Yeah.
reclassified as African American legally. They had to do that to go to
Yeah.
a black school
That's
during
right.
Jim Crow. And those are difficult decisions.
Yes, they are. And so I have a very personal experience with that, and I know some of them are gone now because they were taking care of me when I was 6 years old or something. But that's a long time ago now.
Right.
but that's a personal experience. It's very poignant to me. But the bigger point that you're also making is how this production last night encompassed all of that.
Right.
And it dealt with complex questions like
Right.
that of relationships between African Americans historically and at the present time and Native people. And it's really very, very important to understand those things. When I first became the director of the National Museum of the American Indian, one of my colleagues was the director of the Anacostia Museum, which, as you know, is a community
Right.
African American
Right.
museum, but part of the Smithsonian
Right.
system. And he and I got together, and I got to know him. And we both concluded that what we both wanted to do was, with respect to each of our discrete communities, me Native
Right.
and Steve on the African American side, and do an exhibit that spoke to the question
Right.
of Black Indians.
The Indivisible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an essay in the book.
Oh, do you?
Right, I
Oh,
have
bless
an
your
essay
heart.
on
I'd
art.
forgotten
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I have an
Yeah, so
essay
you
in
know
the
that
book.
very
Yeah, I was
well.
involved with that a lot, right.
And-
They traveled to Idle-George in
Yeah.
Indianapolis, and I was teaching at Purdue. So I was on the consulting
okay.
board of people in Indianapolis when we traveled
That's
to
terrific.
Indianapolis.
That's terrific.
Yeah, I have a
So
lot of
we
history
did
with that, yeah.
Yeah, we did that, and that happened. Unfortunately, Steve had passed by then, which I deeply regretted. But it was started under me and then spun out after I had retired in 2007.
Okay.
But that's a kind of marker, and you saw those kinds of questions dealt with in the production last night. And so it's consistent with what we were saying earlier about how the network has to be broad.
Right.
We need to recognize that a movement is needed to do some of this change making that we want to do. And you have to cast the net as wide as possible because there are other parties and communities of interest besides Native people themselves
Right.
on this broad set of questions. And as you pointed out, there were representatives of the African American community in Standing Rock when that
that's
was
right.
going on. And I think that that's a point made by the documentary
Definitely.
you're referring to, and it's very, very important.
Now, you have 2 more sessions today that you're doing, so
I do.
give us a kind of brief preview what you're going to be talking about at 11 o'clock and then again at 2:30. They got you working today, Rick.
Yes, no, I don't mind it at all. Oh, and I never did answer your question way back when, and I don't want to forget it, about involvement with First Peoples.
Right, oh, that's right.
And the involvement with First Peoples is simply as a volunteer,
Okay.
for this event. I've known Lori, the head of First Peoples Fund, for a long, long time.
Okay.
She's a very distinguished Lakota family, and I knew her mother. I probably knew her mother before I knew her,
Okay.
Lori, because she's younger than I. But I'm proud of what they do, and I'm particularly fascinated and inspired by their focus on the role of Native artists. And that is a focus which Lori herself has sharpened very much during her tenure at the First Peoples Fund. So when they asked me to join them here, I was delighted to do so. Now the sessions today, the first one is basically about the subject of dispossession.
Right,
From a
I like that
cultural-
title.
Yes,
Right.
from a cultural and political standpoint. What were the instruments of it? Does it pretty much typify history for us? What are we doing about it at the present time? Are there any changing trend lines, etc., that are slightly more promising than what we've been through for the last 200 years? It's those kinds of questions, and it's a conversation that is moderated between Sherry Solway Black and me,
Okay.
and So that's what that one is, and I'm delighted to be involved in that one. Because I sort of hit it from both the legal political side, because I was a practicing native rights lawyer for a long time before I became director of the NMAI. And that sort of hit the cultural side
Right.
of the political constitutional calculus. And I value that kind of discussion. So that's the first one. And then the second one is for me a labor of love, which is to say I'm interviewing Ben Peace, who designed the cover, if you will, the poster art for this meeting and this event. And he's
Is that the
young.
guy yesterday on
Yes,
the stage? Right.
yes, he was painting up
Painting,
on the
right,
stage.
right.
He's just, you look at him and you're sort of comfortable that it doesn't matter that I'm 80 years old. We'll soon be passing from the scene.
I'm
Because-
70, so I
because-
feel, I know what you mean.
You're right. Because people like him are just right there.
Right.
And he's 32 and highly talented. He's a very talented artist. I do know native artists. I've
Right.
been born to one.
Right.
So we're just having a conversation about what went into his beginnings that led to his role now as one of the rising young native visual artists. And I've talked to him several times along the way in preparation for it. But he will be showing much of his work beyond what you saw being created in front of you at the reception last night. So it should be fun. And it again emphasizes the role that native artists play in maintaining culture,
Right.
both reflecting the past achievements, but at the same time with a forward focus and a perspective take on how artists help prepare us for the next 7 generations.
Oh, one of my relatives asked me to tell you hello, Rose Powhatan. She said
Yes.
she's contacted you a lot.
Yes,
She said
she
to tell you
did.
hello. Last year she had a Ringapo festival here at the Kennedy Center. It was music, dance, and outdoor film festival.
that's
She's
great.
doing it again Labor Day weekend.
We'll give her my very
So
best.
she's got the East
Yes.
Coast musicians, dancers, vendors, and stuff
Good,
like that. So she said,
good.
please tell you hello. It's her mother who's in the Women's Museum here in D.C.
Okay.
Georgia Mills Jessup is her mother.
Okay.
And so I think she's the only Native American woman painter in the permanent collection
Yeah,
of the
of
National
it,
Museum.
yeah, that's wonderful. We'll give her my very best, and I'm glad that we, in the NMAI still does it, I think. We're able to put a greater accent on the fact that there are Native peoples sitting
Right here in D.C.
Right here.
Right, right.
and
They're
that
not
we should-
all out west or
No,
we're not extinct. Like when I was a child, said the Pamunkey were a remnant tribe. That's what the history book
Yeah.
says. A remnant's like a piece of material or something. It's not even a person.
It's sort of in a
It's
pile-
remnant
in a pile
tribe.
over
Yeah,
there.
that's like a horrible description of a
It is.
people.
It is. And they had the misfortune, unfortunately, of being the first
Right.
to be put in the position of receiving the visitors from abroad. But we must not forget, and Cheyennes feel that particularly because we're Algonquian, and most of the tribes that you're talking about were Algonquian,
Right.
Algonquian speaking,
Right.
along the coast here, especially in the Northeast. Because the Cheyennes originally were located probably in the southeast corner of Canada, and they migrated west, forced to migrate, and went into the Midwest and then onto the plains. But they are Algonquian. We are Algonquian speaking.
You forget, I always think it's more just the East Coast, but you have also the Ojibwe people, that's Algonquin.
Yes,
And
they're
they're in the
Algonquian
Midwest,
speaking too.
they're
Yeah,
Algonquin
yeah.
speaking
No, that's
too.
right. That's absolutely right.
Can I just do one more favor? I just want to take a
Sure.
selfie in my own camera.
That's fine.
Because I don't know when I'm going to see all the stuff that Julian is doing for us. I'll let him take a picture of us. You can do it for me,
Yeah.
Julian. Wait a minute. I'll do a selfie first.
Okay.